Hi there. So this is the third video in this series, and in the first one I talked a little bit about myself and the work that I do, and sort of where I'm coming from on all of this. And then in the last video I talked about the ideas of being too much and not being enough, and shame, and connecting to those stories. And I invited you to a sighing practice when you notice yourself judging other women or yourself about being too much or not enough, and invited you to get curious about why that was, why you were judging, why that's bothering you, where did that story come from, kind of thing. And then today I wanted to talk about connecting to ourself, right? So we all have these stories that I talked about last time of being too much and not enough, and we're all bombarded with these stories from our outer world, and then that feeds the story that we internalize, that we hold inside, and it snowballs, right? And so how do we get to who we are outside of these stories, or beyond these stories, or without these stories of being too much and not enough? Who are we? Right? How do we connect to ourself and our own desires, our own longings, our own truth? Right? How do we connect to that inner voice that is our true voice, and not the inner critic, the stories of all these people talking at us, little crab hands, talking at us, telling us who we should or shouldn't be, right? So how do we get to that place of figuring out for ourselves who we truly are? I believe that a huge piece of it is in the unraveling of these stories, right? It's in the work of learning and knowing and seeing how these stories are passed down to us. It's in playing. It's in getting curious, right? You don't start down this path. You don't start down this journey to know yourself if you aren't curious, right? Curiosity is a vital piece to this work, which was why in the last video I invited you to get curious. Get curious about where these stories come from. Get curious about what these stories mean. Like, when was the first time that you were told you were too loud? When was the first time that you were told you couldn't be angry, that you were too emotional? Right? Where did these stories, when was the first time that you can consciously remember being told that? And then we can start, once we start to dig into that, right? Then we can dig into it more and more and more and more. And it starts to unravel. And all of a sudden we see that, oh, all of this crap about how loud I am, it's all a bunch of crap. And really, I'm not all that loud. Or I don't talk too much, or I don't laugh too much, or I'm not too emotional, or whatever the thing is, right? You're justified in your, right, your reactions. So this connecting, this getting there, right? So the practice that I offered you last video was this sighing. And for me, this work, all of this work, started with me wanting to be a better mom and breathing. That's where it started. And I start all of my programs, all of them, even our online phone calls, our phone calls, my Skype sessions, my in-person sessions, my email work, all of it. We start with the breath. we connect to our breath. As we connect to our breath, we connect to our body, right? And it brings us back into our body. A big thing, something that's very common among women, is that we disown our bodies. We don't live in them. We hate them. We talk about how they're too fat, how they're too skinny, how they failed us in fertility, how they failed us in, any number of ways, with chronic pain, cancer, heart attack, right? There's a million ways that we can, just getting the flu, right? We talk about how our bodies fail us, how our bodies are bad. And it's not just about weight, although that's a big thing, right? That's a huge thing too in our culture. And certainly focused at women, and it's focused at men also. However, I'm talking about more than just weight. I'm talking about more than just physical appearance. I'm talking about how we get so angry at our bodies and how we disown them. Because we get sick. Because our bodies try to tell us, slow the fuck down, and we don't want to listen, and so we push and push and push, and then our body says, no, stop. We're done now. In whatever ways our body does that, be it a heart attack, be it chronic pain, be it developing autoimmune issues, be it cancer, right? Any of these things, our body says, stop. We're done. And we claim that our body failed us, right? And my claim is that it's because we've disowned and we've not listened and we've not tuned in. Now, that said, cancer happens, heart attacks happen, flus, colds, all these things happen, right? I mean, that's part of life. And I certainly am not here saying that if you live a certain way, then these things won't happen. I am not at all saying that. I don't believe that to be true. And when we disown our bodies and we shove so much hatred at it, I struggle with understanding why we're surprised that we get sick. And again, I'm not saying if you just love your body, then you'll cure your cancer. That's not what I'm saying at all. I want to be clear. That's not what I'm saying. I'm also not saying if you just love your body, you'll never get cancer. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying both. I'm saying that it's all interrelated. And yes, these things happen. And part of the cause could be our disowning and our hatred and our anger that we stuff and we shove and we focus in on our bodies, our organs, our appearance, all of it. So connecting to breath lets us connect to our bodies in a very slow and steady way. I have many practices that I offer clients. There's breathing exercises, there's body scan exercises, there's very focused and modified body scan exercises where we go through and we scan our bodies for particular things. And you can do any of these things, just a very simple counting your exhales exercise. Couple times a day. Maybe you do it in the morning as you awake, at night as you fall asleep. Maybe you do it at lunch. Maybe you do it when your children are driving you insane and you think your head's gonna explode. Whenever it works. Just simply sitting there and focusing on your exhale and counting exhales up to 10 and then starting over again and counting another 10 and just focusing on that exhale and making sure that you are exhaling. Right? So we connect to our bodies. We connect to our breath. As we connect to our bodies, then we can connect deeper, and we can start hearing the stories that live within us. So one of the theories of trauma work is that traumatic experiences live within our muscles, and that that can come out in a variety of ways, right? A variety of symptoms is how that can show up. And so there are different ways of healing trauma that are focused on connecting to the body, and one of the ways is a shaking method. And there's multiple different there's multiple ways of coming at this idea of shaking, but the basis is that in nature, if an animal experiences trauma, they get up and they shake it all off, right? When a dog gets out, a dog has been in a car ride for a while, right? The first thing they do when they get out is they just shake it all out, right? Because that was a traumatic experience for them. They didn't understand why they were moving when they weren't moving their own bodies. And it freaks their little brains out. And that's okay, because they know how to recover from it. They just get out and they shake it off and they're fine. Everything's okay. They're cool, right? We don't do that. We don't do that as people. We disconnect. We disconnect from our bodies, and we don't allow ourselves to literally shake it off. Right? So within our muscles, so that's where this idea that within our very muscles, these stories live. That our lived experience is within our body, and the stories that go with that. And so by doing body scans, by listening to where pain is, by just breathing into where pain is and being curious and asking, is there something I need to know? What are you trying to tell me? Right? And just letting whatever pops into your head pop into your head. Right? It could be some memory from 20 years ago. It could be something that happened at dinner last night. It could, whatever it is, right? So we connect to our stories. We're connecting our mind and our body, right? That's connecting our mind and our body. It's part of our path to self. It's getting to know. It's bringing all of that unconscious into the conscious. It's bringing the shadow into light. It's getting to know ourselves. It's integrating all our aspects of who we are. Right? So there's two of the three, and then there's spirit. In my work, my personal work, and my work with other women, I have a strong pull to connecting to what I call feminine source. You could call this the goddess. You could call this, I was raised Catholic, so Mother Mary, of course, always comes into mind. You can call it whatever you want. It can be nature, right? Whatever that energy is for you. For me, it's a very feminine energy, and that's just where I am in my journey. For others, it's a very much more balanced feminine, masculine. And yet for others, it's masculine, right? I mean, wherever you are in your journey, it doesn't matter. It's not that part isn't relevant. What is relevant is that it is a source and an energy that is greater than any of us. And it lives outside of us, beyond us, and it is within us. And it is a very all-loving, unconditional loving, healthy attachment energy. So let's take a step back and think about that for a minute. Let's think about what it means to be unconditionally loved. My guess is most of us have not experienced that from other people in our lives. Maybe a few of us have at different points. And the truth is, we all are walking around with our wounds, right? We all have our shit. We all have our baggage. So it makes it really hard to love other people wholly because we don't feel whole in ourselves. We don't feel holy, Holy, sacred, and we don't feel whole, Whole. Had to think about that for a minute. Complete, right? We don't feel holy or holy at all. We feel holy, as in Holey, right? We're full of holes, like Swiss cheese. And so when you feel like that, when you don't feel complete within yourself, it's very, very challenging to love another completely and wholly and accept them as they are, their light and their dark. When we don't accept our own light and dark, it is hard as hell to accept someone else's, right? When we don't accept that we're human and we fuck up all the time, it's really hard to accept that in someone else. And it's really hard to love someone else because we can't accept them. So that's what this work of connecting to source is. That's what this work of connecting to God, Goddess is. That's what this work of connecting to nature and energy. And when I say nature, I mean like, I don't just mean going out and hugging trees, although I very much encourage doing that. I hug trees. I encourage, my daughter hugs trees. I encourage my little guy to do the same thing. There's a lot of energy that trees have that I'm really called to. And the point is, it's greater than that, right? It's beyond that. It's that there is an entire system out there that we are a part of. We are an important part of and a completely unimportant part of. That it will go on without us. And it will only go on the way it is with us as long as we're here, right? It lives outside of us and it is within us. And it is this idea of whole and complete and sacred unconditional love. And when we can allow ourselves to feel that energy, things shift. Things shift within us. They just do. Now suddenly we are able to love ourselves because we have this other energy that loves us, right? And we can feel it. When we allow ourselves to feel it, that's the key. We got to feel it. When we allow ourselves to feel it, then things shift. And then our whole sense of self becomes clear, becomes clearer, right? Now we can integrate body, mind, and spirit. And we can physically feel the love. We can consciously and mindfully acknowledge it. We can feel it. We can relate to it. I have meditations that I offer clients that guided meditations that help you connect to that source, that energy, that feeling. And it's really powerful work. It's really powerful. Getting this whole self integrated. And then, right, and as you're doing this work, other things become clear, like what you really want to do with your life, who you really want to be, what's important to you, what are your values, who do you want to be in this world, what impacts do you want to have, how do you want to make the world a better place, how can you change it, and then going through and doing that work, doing the changes. Making the changes happen in whatever ways that are right for you, right? Everybody impacts the world differently, right? Part of this work is realizing that you don't have to do it like somebody else does. And what works for them is great and beautiful and wonderful and may not work for you. And that is okay. That's okay. We all get to be ourselves. Every single one of us. We don't have to be somebody else. Who wants to be somebody else, right? Well, we all do. We all do at different points. We all want to be somebody else at some point in our lives. And the truth is, we can only be us. That's the truth. So, talked a lot about how we can get to ourselves and the importance of really integrating and connecting our body, mind, and spirit, and how we can do that. It's pretty amazing work. And it is not quick fixes, right? Although I will say that my experience and the experience of many of my clients has been that once they start the breath work, right, like they notice changes really quickly, just in how they're able to be in the world. So this is lifelong stuff. This is lifelong practices. It's lifelong digging. It's lifelong connecting. It's lifelong knowing. And there are some simple things like counting exhales, like sighing that I offered last time, that can help you just get in the moment and release. So tomorrow I will talk about ways that we can stay connected and that I can help you in your journey if that's what would be helpful for you. So I'm sending you love. I will talk to you in a couple more days, and I hope you have a great few days in between. Okay, namaste. Mwah.